Records broken, misfortune overcome, and Toyota domination. Those are the key headlines coming out of Secto Rally Finland in 2025, and in this video we're going to be talking about all of them and more. And we'll start off with the winner, Rovanpera. He should have won last year, he could have won last year. He realistically could have won any Rally Finland that he's competed in the top flight machinery. But there seemed to be this Rovanpera curse, and it stretched back to his father competing in the WRC. Remember, his father only ever had one WRC event win, and that was in Sweden. It wasn't he wasn't competitive anywhere else. He was actually very competitive on the roads around Jyväskylä as well. But it would be reliability or mistakes. The same thing happened to the two-time world champion. But this year, it didn't. He won half the stages. He won by 40 seconds. He had as convincing a win as Oliver Solberg did a couple of weeks ago in Estonia. We'll talk about Oliver Solberg's misfortunes when we cover WRC2, but it was domination. And for a driver who has struggled with the handcooks this year and has admitted that he was struggling on the fast rallies, he struggled a lot in Estonia, for example. He's overcome a lot of misfortune and is a not only deserved winner, but somebody who has put himself back into some kind of title contention, especially when you look at the performances for his rivals in the championship. And let's quickly talk about that, because the title battle has changed massively. The championship leader coming into this is now in 4th, but it's a bit to do with the strength of Rovanpera, who is now 2nd in the standing, 3 points off the lead, and a bit to do with more fortune for the others. Elfyn Evans, for example, he ended up finishing in 4th place. He was 48 seconds off the win. He was competitive last year, and it wasn't that he was uncompetitive this year. It's just that he wasn't able to string together what his teammate did. He was 9 seconds off of 2nd place, which shows how competitive the Toyotas more generally were this weekend. But he just didn't have the outright pace to get all the way up to 2nd. Thierry Neuville had a puncher. He's admitted that his title defence is pretty much done. And Oid Tanak, wow, he would have been 7th. But he got a penalty, a hefty penalty, a 5-minute penalty. Leaving I think it was an interview zone. He was talking to reporters as part of this. He said, "I need to leave now." And there were people scanning the tyres, and he ended up striking one of the people who was checking the tyres and scanning the tyres with the car. Now, fortunately, no major injuries for that person, but because it was a driving infraction in which he hit somebody who was one of the organisation, a 5-minute penalty came through. It's understandable, it's a shame, but it's a shame that situation's happened altogether. So, yeah, luckily, no severe injuries. Unfortunately for Tanak, a 5-minute penalty, meaning that he leaves this weekend with 2 points. 1 for 10th, 1 for 7th on Super Sunday. But Toyota dominated Rally Finland. I've talked about Rovanpera's win. It was impressive, it was dominant, he won half the stages. But 2nd place for Takamoto Katsuta. Taka and his co-driver Aaron Johnston are some fan favourites, and they really are. I would say the way to look at them would be maybe a bit kind of Hulkenberg in F1. I think the best comparison I could think of is the likes of Bubba Wallace in NASCAR, in that they have the pace to be deserving of a drive up at the front. They do. They are going to be there or thereabouts in the thick end of the field most weekends. But they aren't, the generational talents. They aren't your Ogiers, your Rovanperas in NASCAR. They aren't your Larsons, your Elliots, your Hamlins. And it just means that when you see those days of days happening, you just want to praise them all the more. Taka has 3 rallies in which he should win at some point in his career just because of how relentlessly competitive he is. And you could even say he's added a 4th to his repertoire in recent years with Sweden. But it's Finland, where he lives. He lives in Jyväskylä. It's his home rally in Japan. And it's a safari. And in recent years, he hasn't had the luck to be able to show that pace, that potential. But he did this year. He gets 2nd. He beat Seb Ogier in a straight fight. He beat Elfyn Evans in a straight fight. And I'll tell you what, if he did win, if he had managed to beat Carlo Rovanpera, probably the first person to be there celebrating with Taka and Aaron would be Carlo Rovanpera. Those two are best mates. And, yeah. It's weird when I'm talking about Toyota's domination, and they locked out the top 5. They were 2 minutes clear of Neuville, who was a leading non-Toyota. But so much of it is around the one driver who wasn't entered for any team or manufacturer's points this weekend. Well done by Taka. That was absolutely amazing. Ogier rounds out the podium, yes, and Elfyn Evans in 4th. Sami Päivärinta in 5th was 30 seconds behind Evans, a minute 20 behind Rovanpera, about 40 seconds behind Taka. Just otherworldly. And I'll quickly talk about M Sport because I don't get a chance to talk about them so much at the moment. They round out the Rally 1 field. They all finished ahead of Oid Tanak, and quite comfortably so, but they were on their own. Josh McAlean, his first Rally Finland behind the wheel of a Rally 1 car, led the M Sport pack ahead of Martin Sesks and Gregoire Munster. And you have to look into the data between all of them to be able to get a clearer picture of what happened over the course of this, because part of it was defined by what happened on the Parkola 2 test, stage 15. Because what you'll see is that Martin Sesks lost 2 minutes. He was 53rd fastest. In fact, that was out of 57 people who completed the stage. Now, the reason why is a misted windscreen. And that is what meant that Josh McAlean was the fastest Puma. But it still would have been that regardless, Sesks would have been a minute behind Neuville, who had a puncher. And without his penalty, would have been about 30 seconds behind Tanak, who also had things like punches and spins this weekend. Gregoire Munster managed to get to the end. He got passed by Sesks on the final run of Rovanpera, the power stage. And yeah, all 3 of them made it to the end with only one real drama. But it shows that M Sport is still driving with a hand behind their back, essentially. Because, wow, they haven't been able to keep up the kinds of developments that Toyota and Hyundai have done. They're able to get to the end of the events, they're able to pick up points. But it would be nice to see them be right up at the thick end again. The car does have the potential in it. It won the first hybrid event. Sesks was competitive before last year when he was in a dehybrided car, and also when he had a hybrided car. So the platform works. It just needs to be fully realised. In WRC2, and this battle went down to the wire between Rupa Korhonen, who has been very competitive this year in the ERC and is showing competition here in WRC2, gets a win here by 1.1 seconds from Jari-Matti Latvala. And it was misfortune that cost Latvala what would have been a sensational home win. It was still a home win for Korhonen, but I mean, I think the issues on Friday meant that Latvala for one point actually walked away from the cameras like, I just need to calm down, because I'm not just a driver here, I am the team boss. But it's still a Toyota win. Robert Vevej rounds out the podium ahead of Emil Lindholm and Yuki Yamamoto. Great run for Yamamoto there. He got passed by Lindholm on the final stage, but it means 3 Yaris's in the top 5. And is this one of Yamamoto's best runs in WRC2 as well? Just outside the top 5 is Rommel Jurgensen. He was 6 seconds behind Yamamoto at the end of this and 7-8 seconds behind Emil Lindholm. But they were all very much the class of their own, because then if you look at WRC2, and I have skipped over Nikolai Gryazen. Gryazen did end up finishing between Vervej and Lindholm. You end up with a massive drop down because there was no points for Gus Griesbith, who picked up a 30-second penalty. It was just behind Jurgensen in the official classification. Nor Johan Russell, who was 4 seconds behind Griesbith after Griesbith's penalty. You then drop 3 minutes to get to the next driver, which was Martin Prokop, who held off Larry Una, who himself picked up a penalty. Jan Cherney and Giovanni Trentin round out the top 10 here, with Sarazan and Rumo just outside of it for the Iron Link Citroen squad. It was well done by Korhonen, well done by Jurgensen. I feel sorry for Jari-Matti Latvala. And we'll quickly talk WRC3 and JWRC. Now, even though the WRC3 winner is a JWRC competitor, Taylor Gill didn't win the JWRC here. No, the win in JWRC went the way of Eamon Kelly, who's not entered in for WRC3. He beat Taylor Gill by 8.3 seconds. Now, neither of them picked up the most stage wins. They don't take the stage win points with them. That goes the way of Mille Johansson. But in the end, it was quite competitive in the JWRC and WRC3 for that matter. The podium in JWRC, 21.7 seconds. Eamon Kelly beats Taylor Gill by 8.3. Ali Turkan was in third, 21.7 off. And then it's 50.4 to Atu Hakaleto, who ended up picking up stage wins as well. We do have 10 classified JWRC cars at the end. Behind them, it was Kerem Kazaz, Mille Johansson in 6th, Diego Dominguez, Max Smart, Claire Schoenbrunn, and Thomas Martens, who I think had to Super Rally. In WRC3 itself, it's, well, Ville Vatanen managed to sneak himself between Turkan and Hakaleto in the Clio. Levi Lassila ended up getting between Hakaleto and Kazaz, as did Arthur Pellemorg. So, as a result, with Ville Pinonen also getting into the top 10, Shara Gerto just outside of the top 10, thanks to, well, amongst other things, penalties. The top 10 in WRC3 was Taylor Gill, Ali Turkan, Ville Vatanen, Atu Hakaleto, Levi Lassila, Arthur Pellemorg, Kerem Kazaz, Diego Dominguez, Ville Pinonen, and Max Smart. So let's talk championship standings, and we'll start off with WRC drivers, co-drivers, manufacturers, teams. Elfyn Evans is back in the lead of the championship after losing it last round to Oid Tanak. But Tanak comes out of this with only a couple of points to his name. So Evans leads on 176 points to Carlo Rovanpera's 173. Then it's showing that it's a tie between Ogier and Tanak on 163, with Neuville in 5th on 125. Outside of the top 5, you end up with Taka Katsuta on 87, Adrian Fourmeau on 71, with a retirement, unfortunately, for issues in the power stage, right at the end of the power stage as well. And Oliver Solberg was in 8th place on 52. Sami Pairi is catching the Estonia winner, though, on 48, and Greg Munster is rounding out the top 10 on 21. Makalayan and Sesks both catching him quite quickly. If we have a look at the co-drivers, that does mean that Scott Martin leads Jonna Haltonen from Vincent Londe, Martin Javaoja, Martin Wiedeiger, Aaron Johnston, Alex Correa, Elliot Edmondson, Marcus Salmonen, and Louis Luca. In the manufacturer standings, Toyota lead Hyundai by quite a bit now. It's 458 to 371, with M Sport in third on 129, and the second Toyota team on 85. And then, yeah, for teams, it's the only one that's classed is the junior Toyota team on 175 points. In WRC2, Oliver Solberg holds on to the championship lead, but he was always going into Finland. The problem is, he didn't score in Finland. He crashed out on the Friday, a sort of 0 to 0 moment for the young Swede. Now, whilst you do get a drop round in WRC2, what it means for Solberg is he's going to have to carry the 5th place from Kenya, which he was lucky he was still 5th. He got caught in the fesh again this year. So, 85 points for Solberg out of 5 scores from the possible 7. Johan Russell has 5 to his name and is on 82. Rupert Korhonen is now into 3rd place. He has 5 scores to himself as well. He's on 69 points. Gus Greensmith is in 4th on 57, but he's already done 3 championship scoring events so far. Vivej in 5th has scored 5 times and has 50 points. Dapra in 6th has scored 5 times and has 49 points. You might be wondering why I am reading all these names off, and the reason why is because there is a name that I haven't read yet. In fact, I'm not going to read him if I read the top 10. Down in 9th and 10th, by the way, the likes of Romer Jurgensen in 9th on 34 from 6 over possible 7. Now, that's because of the Rally Star and WRC promoter funded entries. He's just behind Kajtanovic and Solans and just ahead of Laura Una. But the person I'm looking for is behind not Johan Russell, but Leo Russell. He's currently 22nd in the WRC2 standings. And that is Nikolai Gryajan. Gryajan has only had 2 WRC2 entries so far this year. Islas Canarias, where he got 3rd, and Estonia. And in Estonia, he didn't finish. He crashed out. Now, that is important because if you have a look at what's left in the WRC calendar, we have 5 events. Nikolai Gryajan is probably going to be entered in all 5 of them. So, when you ask Oliver Solberg, why are you still worried? Because in apples for apples comparison, you go, okay, he's got Russell, he's held at bay, and Greensmith's going to be doing battle with a lot of different people in 4 of the last 5 events. The worry is Gryajan. Because Gryajan's top score will be 0. And as a result, his lowest score will be 15. Whereas for Oliver, his drop score is also 0. But his lowest carried score will be 10. So if Gryajan wins every one left, bearing in mind there is a head-to-head with Solberg at one point, he could technically steal the championship. What Solberg will want is he'll want to win those 2 remaining events he has. Because at least one will be a head-to-head with both Greensmith and Gryajan. And that will be interesting for the WRC2 championship. It'll also mean that Johan Russell could show up and be spoiler, and if he does as well as Oliver does, he could, in theory, go away from it as the champion as well. I think Korhonen's priority is probably still the ERC, but most likely it's Solberg versus Gryajan versus Greensmith versus Russell. It's a similar kind of picture when we look at the co-drivers as well, with their respective co-drivers all having done every event. The likes of Edmondson, Dunand, Vinica and Anderson for the top 4. And yeah, when you then end up going further and further and further down, you have Konstantin Alexandrov for Nikolai Gryajan. In the team's standings, and PH Sport are leading Tok Sport, it's 178 to 131, with Toyota's next generation entry being on 89, and then the Iron Link Sarazan entry on 64. And we'll round out with the WRC3 and JWRC. Taylor Gill is at the forefront, 92 points. WRC3, Artur Pelleborg is on 60. Fontana and Turkan are tied on 59, with the top 5 rounded out by Takumi Matsushita on 57, just ahead of Kerem Gazaz by 2 points. That means the same picture in the Co-Drivers Championship as well, with their respective co-drivers all up at the front. When it comes to the Junior WRC, though, it is Taylor Gill from Miller Johansson, and the gap has grown. That is because although Johansson won the most stages, the 6th place finish comes with 8 points. Taylor Gill's second comes with 17. Turkan rounds out the top 3 ahead of Eamon Kelly. And then after them, it's Kazaz, Dominguez, Martin, Smart, Akaleto, Schönborn, Nurgin, Charpentier. With it being rounded out by the single entries for Licia Baudet and Shaka Joyan. And that's Rally Finland done for another year. Thanks so much for watching and joining, folks. Let me know any thoughts that you've had in the comment section down below. And until next time, it's bye-bye for now.